Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Students of the Snake in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. CH41 Cheating. The Oto and Suna were fortunate to not be disturbed their first night in Konoha. Their hotel did have several Umbu watching over it, but in all fairness their hotel wasn't the only one, so it was considered just normal protocol. They got up early and headed towards the Konoha Academy. They only knew where it was thanks to Gaara looking for it yesterday while his siblings were busy. Then again the gathering crowd of genin helped them too. Naruto looked over the building for a moment. Looks like a decent place. To think I might have learned how to be a ninja here instead of Oto had Ji-san not taken me out of this hellhole. Then again, from what I've been told, I doubt I would have learned much if anything if I had attended this place. Which room do we go to again? Zaku asked. All four teams had gone together with the whole safety in numbers principle in mind. And they all still wore the same outfits and disguises they wore coming into the village. For better odds in their favor, they went there 10 minutes ahead of time. 301 according to the gatekeepers. Kin told him. Shouldn't be that hard to find. Hinata said. Let's go in then. Naruto told them with his trademark grin. They opened the door and saw several genin already trying to find the room they needed to go to. Apparently they weren't the only ones who wanted an early start. Kankuro then spoke into his remote communicator that was tuned into all of them at the moment. It had two other frequencies, one was for personal teams, and the other to contain the jounin in case of severe trouble. Hey, if these guys can't find the place to go, I guess we barely have any competition. Tamari responded. Or maybe there are diversions set up as part of the test. Think about it, if you can't even find where you're supposed to go, then why would you deserve to be Chiryunin? Good point, Tamari-chan. So we should keep our eyes open for tricks but not remove any of them. Don't want to increase the competition after all. Naruto said. They walked down the hall and saw the numbers above the room. 101, 102, 103, etc. Looks like we may have to go to the third floor. Gaara thought out loud. I think so. Have you guys noticed that no actual leaf genin are on this floor? They all would know exactly where to go, so everyone down here is from out of town and searching the hard way, like we just did. Sasami pointed out. Hey, do you guys hear something? Isaribi asked them, looking towards her right. Everyone strained their ears. Sounds like a fight. Guess someone couldn't wait. Doso commented. Should we go take a look? Just for the hell of it? Fu asked. Naruto shrugged. Nah. I'd like to find the room and just get there personally. Same here. Hinata agreed. I'm going to go take a quick look. I won't be long. Fu said, then walked away. We should follow her, Haku. It's probably not a good idea for our teams to be split here. Sasami told her teammate. Haku nodded. Good point. She then turned to the rest of their group. We'll meet up with you guys in a moment. Let's go find the room. I'll send a clone for them when we find it. Naruto told everyone else when Sasami and Haku wandered off. There's some stairs, that's a good start. Kankuro said, stating the obvious. The 9 ninja went up to the second floor. Before they could keep going up, they noticed a small crowd down the hallway. It looks like a crowd of genin trying to get into a room, but someone won't let them. Zaku said. Why would they do that here? This is the second floor, not the third. Tamari asked. Must be a trick. But if you ask me, anyone dumb enough to fall for that is too dumb to be even genin. Isaribi commented. The others nodded and just continued on up the stairs. They saw no point in getting involved in the commotion. Before they got to the next floor, Naruto created a shadow clone in case anyone on the third floor would be there to see him do it, and had the clone hide with a henge that made it blend in with the wall. The original would signal later for it to go find the others and lead them to the correct room. At the third floor they went down the hallway and reached a room marked 301. In front of it was a Konoha ninja awaiting them, which happened to be a young man with a strange burn-like scar covering a good portion of his left face under his eye. Hi, I'm Rado Namayoshi. Judging from the fact that there are 9 of you, I take it that means you're actually 3 complete teams that just came here at the same time. They nodded. Good. My job is to ensure that only complete teams come here. Any incomplete teams are prohibited from advancing past this point, as it shows no teamwork skills needed for a proper cheryunin. Makes sense. Zuko commented. Rado nodded and handed each of them a small piece of paper. Go on in. Seating will be assigned, so don't bother getting comfortable with each other. And try not to draw attention to yourselves. The genin opened the door and entered the room. It was crowded with several shinobi of various origins, the most notable places being Konoha, Iwa, Kusa, Taki, Aim, Kyumo, and Kiri. Most of them gave the newcomers the evil eye in an effort to size them up for future competition. Hinata gave the Kyumonin cautious glances. How exactly do we know where we're going to sit? Hinata asked Naruto. He pulled out the paper Rado gave him and saw the number 52 on it. I guess that's my seat. Which one's yours? Hinata checked her own. 27. Looks like we won't. Oh, my clone just dispelled, so the others are on their way here. And I think my clone saw a guy wearing green spandex. Naruto replied. Hinata arched an eyebrow. Seriously? He nodded. Weird. Well, good luck, Naru-kun. You too, Hina-chan. They refrained from kissing or holding hands to avoid revealing to any threats that they were closer than comrades. All the Oto and Suna genin checked their numbers and took their assigned seats. They all sat apart from each other, but Temari sat directly behind Kankuro and Sasami sat at Naruto's right. Outside that, each one of the rest of them were at least one person apart in any direction. They quickly realized this was part of the test to ensure they all couldn't communicate with each other conveniently. The door behind them opened and they checked to see who was entering. It wasn't Haku, Fu, and Sasami, but a trio of Konoha ninja they didn't recognize. One had brown hair and wore what looked like a trench coat with a high collar, the other had black hair and pale skin, almost making him look like a relative of Orochimaru, and the female member had long brown hair with a purple, white and red dress and a cautious expression. After them came another trio of Konoha ninja. One had brown hair in a pineapple style much like Anko and a gray shirt with a bored expression. Another was a little on the heavy-set side with red hair and an open green shirt over a white one. The female member was a pretty blonde wearing purple clothes that Anko would probably have worn when younger, along with cloth warmers on her forearms and calves. After them the last team from Oto came in and immediately seeked their seats. The Konoha genin apparently all chose to stand around and wait for something to happen rather than get ready for the test to start. A minute later another Konoha team entered. One of them was clearly a Hyuga from his eyes, and he looked at everyone like they weren't worth breathing towards. His male teammate was the green spandex wearer Naruto warned Hinata about, and his female teammate showed nothing special about herself, making her all the more necessary to keep an eye on later. This team did decide to take their assigned seats right away. The Kunoichi member stretched her arms above her head as she walked towards her spot 2 seats left of Kin, and if anyone looked at her they would have seen her toss some small mirrors onto the ceiling that stuck in place with wires attached. Finally, the last Konoha team entered, and it was the one Oto encountered in Wave. They looked no different than before, except that Sasuke stood less rigid and Sakura wasn't trying to smother him with close contact. The Oto shinobi made a point to not look at them to avoid being recognized right away. So far it worked, and the interaction the other Konoha teams did with this team made it harder for Sasuke, Sakura, and Kiba to spot anyone in the room. A puff of smoke appeared in the front of the room and a man wearing a dark blue overcoat and a bandana of the same color showed up. A few scars were visible on his face, making him look like a seasoned veteran. "All right, everyone take a seat right away," he shouted, capturing everyone's attentions and making them all obey. Hinata was not satisfied to see Sakura right at her left, but at least she was the only one in their 12-man group close to their main threats. "Welcome to the Churyunin exams. May Kami have mercy on you all," the trench coat man said with a chuckle, making some of the attendees nervous. "My name is Ibiki Marino and I'm going to be in charge of the first section of the Churyunin exam." "First part?" Akusanin asked. "Of course. Did you really think that the evaluation process for becoming a Churyunin would be done with one test? Not even the genin test in the smallest hidden village is that easy." Ibiki answered, then returned his focus to the others. "As I was saying, for those of you that are first-timers, we will test you for the various skills a Chiryunin must possess in various ways, and we do that in 3 ways. This first test will be done here with a 1-hour time limit. With that, 2 doors to either side of Ibiki opened and about 20 Chiryunin from Konoha entered, each holding papers and a clipboard. These assistants of mine here will give you the tests. Under no circumstances is anyone allowed to start before I give permission, or they and their entire team will fail. So while you are waiting to start, allow me to explain the rules of this test. The Chiryunin began passing the tests and pencils out all at once to get it done quickly while Ibiki explained the situation. This will be different than other tests you've taken. For one thing, instead of starting with 0 points and gaining more with each correct answer, you all will start out with perfect scores of 10 and will lose a point for each wrong answer you write down. This test will have 10 questions total and you will have 1 hour to finish it. However, only 9 questions are written down, while the 10th question will be oral and have a few separate stipulations with it. At 10 minutes before the hour is up, those remaining in the test will have the opportunity to hear more. The Chiryunin finished handing out the tests and took seats at the chairs that were aligned against the walls of the room. And don't let me or anyone here catch anyone cheating. These men and women will remain here with me to keep an eye on you to monitor your progress and try to catch any cheaters. If you are caught cheating, you automatically lose 2 points off your total score right away, and if you are caught 5 times, well, if you can't do the math, let's just say you'll be at 0 and instantly disqualified. And your teammates will be forced to leave the test with you regardless of their own scores. All the genin in the room absorbed these instructions and prepared themselves for this. Ibiki eyed them all and saw some but not a lot were uncertain about their skills in getting far. Is that clear? There were no objections. You may begin, now. Everyone turned over their sheet of paper and started reading the first question. Meanwhile, Anko, Kurane, and Kabuto were relaxing in a dango shop in Konoha, enjoying a snack while their students took their tests. Anko was predictably eating the most. You know, I actually kind of envy these kids. Getting to take the real test we couldn't. She said with her mouth full, then swallowed. I don't know if you should. Kabuto warned. I looked into the tests this year as a precaution, and apparently Konoha's top interrogator is leading the first part. So? Why would I care? Anko, being Oto's top interrogator after Orochimaru himself, wasn't an easily intimidated person. Kurane meanwhile didn't look too intimidated either, as she casually drank some green tea. Kabuto rested his chin on his clasped hands. Anko-chan, let's just say that from what I've heard from our trusted sources, that if you hadn't studied under Otokage-sama, you would have loved to have been this guy's pupil instead. Anko looked a bit impressed. Not bad, but no big deal. I'm sure our guys can handle it. I mean, it's not like the first test actually hurts them, right? Anko-chan, you of all people should know just what an expert in the TNI field can do to mess with people. Even without actually shedding blood. Kurane stated. The purple-haired woman shrugged. You got a point. Either way, I have faith in them all. She then took another bite of dango. We didn't come this far to chicken out when the first tough guy showed up, did we? Time went by for the test takers, and within the first 5 minutes almost all the genin realized the true point of the test. The Oto and Suna genin came to the correct conclusion individually when they saw how difficult the questions were and noted that they were all carefully yet randomly seated apart from each other to make direct contact with each other all the more difficult. They all thought it their own way, but the overall summary of their thought process was like this: these questions look like the type only someone who's already an experienced Chiryunin or Jounin could answer easily. I don't think it's possible for anyone to answer these without cheating. Maybe that's the point, since the guy did say we'd only get punished if we were caught cheating multiple times. Think of it like spying on a target. If you're sloppy you ruin the mission, but if you're stealthy enough to get away with it you can do the rest of the job when the opportunity comes. With that, the genin started cheating in their own ways. Gaara made a hovering eye out of sand to let him see the answers already written down and used some more of his sand to silently tell Kankuro and Temari what he found out. Kankuro had carefully gotten his crow puppet mobile and disguised as an extra test monitor early on who was checking on the tests for correct answers, which he'd get from the puppet later. His left hand was under the table moving the puppet while his right hand was writing what he could already answer. Hinata activated her Byakugan but had to apply a genjutsu first to cover the telltale bulging veins. Haku used some movable ice mirrors much like Tenten was doing to see the answers and allow her teammates to as well. Kin used a minor genjutsu to make the tests next to her replicate only to her own eyes so they'd appear in her sight, allowing her to read them without having to glance over the genin's shoulder to do so. Naruto activated his ghost body Kekii Genkai, unnoticeable thanks to his dyed hair which showed no white coloring, and made some invisible clones to check out the answers and dispel, giving him the answers right away. Some of his clones whispered in his teammates' and comrades' ears too. Doso tapped his pencil on the desk in Morse code to give the answers to anyone able to figure out his message. Several teams were disqualified as time went on, but none of the most notable ones. Kankuro asked for a bathroom break and his disguised crow was the one who handcuffed him and led him away for the sake of keeping him cooperative. In the meantime he got all the remaining answers from his puppet and made a copy of them to give to Damari. Niji used his Dujitsu to find the answers from the other genin while Sasuke carefully glanced at his neighbor's work without his Sharingan to aid him. Kiba had Akamaru glance at the other tests from atop his head and tell him the answers in barks. Shino had his insects fly over the room one or two at a time and report back to him. Shikamaru answered as many as he could on his own and used his shadow possession jutsu to make Chuji mimic his movements. Sakura just worked on figuring the answers on her own, somewhat oblivious to the test's true purpose, and Ino took over her body briefly to see the answers. "Alright, pencils down," Ibiki told everyone. "Now, it's time to explain the rules for the 10th question. Listen carefully as I will only say this once." The interrogator's eyes scanned the room as if daring anyone to interrupt, pausing briefly longer than normal to stare at the Otonin. This rule is the most important one of the test. If anyone gets it wrong, then they automatically fail despite the score they already earned. And those that fail will be prohibited from ever being advanced anything higher ranked than a genin for the rest of their lives. Many people gasped. "You can't do that. Others have taken the test before and keep trying." One of the Takinin shouted out. "Too bad for you, because I wasn't in charge of the test those times. This time I am, and what I say goes. Get the 10th question wrong and you'll remain a genin forever. Get it right and you move on to the next round. However, all of you may choose to not answer the question." "What?" Kin asked in confusion. "It's simple. If you feel that your careers are too important to risk, you may choose to sit the 10th question out. If you do, you withdraw from the Churyunin exams but are allowed to take them again another time. Maybe then you'll get a more merciful person than me. So if anyone wants to leave now, raise your hand, then you, and your entire team, will be told to leave. Anyone who wants to stay and risk not only their futures, but those of their teammates, keep your hands down." Ibiki answered, adding some ki to unnerve the genins a little while he was at it. Everyone in the room turned their heads to glance at their teammates, as if silently asking themselves what to do. Many of them weren't too confident in their ability to succeed here, so they volunteered to leave while they still could. Some looked nervous but remained in their seats. Naruto surprised everyone he knew by looking like he was raising his hand, only to slam his fist loudly on his desk. "You think I came all this way and did all those missions for the right to take this test, just to hightail it when someone decides to play mind tricks with me? You're not the first one who's tried to intimidate me and you're certainly not the best. Go ahead and give me this risky 10th question. If I wasn't willing to take risks then I wouldn't be trying to become a Churyunin in the first place." Ibiki glared back at the disguised Jinhiriki, but his peripheral vision told him that the other genin were stealing their nerves back up. Apparently his little outburst reminded them of the courage they needed to have on the job, the courage that Ibiki had been hoping to erode just now. "You better watch your mouth, punk. You may have guts, but do your teammates." He saw two girls cross their arms in response, giving him his answer. Anybody else wished to press their luck and risk everything. No one dared to say they were going to drop out. Ibiki took a deep breath. "In that case I have no choice. You all, pass." There was a brief pause, until a genin spoke up in disbelief. "What the hell do you mean? What do you think I mean? I said you all passed." "But, what about the 10th question?" Sakura asked. "The 10th question was whether or not you were willing to take it." Ibiki told them, seeing most of them didn't get it yet. Like the loud moth here mentioned in his rant, a ninja's life is full of risk. And when you're on missions, you will have to take risks and make decisions that will affect you and your team. Decisions that can get the job done, or get you all hurt badly. If you're too afraid to take those risks, then you're not fit to take this test. This exam is designed to do more than just test your combat skills. What we're doing is testing all your talents as a shinobi. What we were testing just now is your ability to gather information with minimal risk. Ibiki continued before taking off his headband and exposing his many scars. Information is one of the most important things a shinobi needs to do his job, and getting that information is often just as important to the job. Collecting needed information without getting exposed is an important skill for a Chunin. That's why we arranged this test the way we did. It was meant to simulate a mission where you all had to answer the questions, which could only be answered by cheating. My assistants here would pose as lookouts, keeping an eye out for those careless enough to get caught. Getting caught is the worst thing a ninja can do on the job, aside from betrayal. The scarred man saw that the genin were now understanding his words. Of course, in order for any of you to cheat, you needed something to cheat from, a source of information to gather from. So we can two Chunin hit here to answer the questions. The aforementioned plants made small waving motions with their hands to indicate who they were. Anyone who could make it to the 10th question showed they were careful enough to cheat without getting caught or exposing their teammates in the process. Then we issued the 10th question, where we saw your faith in yourself and your comrades to continue the mission even if it meant risking failure. So far, you've all done a good job. And now, you're ready for the second part of the exam. CH42 Dangerous. And now, you're ready for the second part of the exam. Ibiki told all the genin who managed to get through the first test. One of the doors all of Ibiki's assistants had used to enter the room opened, and a young woman entered. She had long straight purple hair that reached to her waist and brown eyes. She wore standard Konoha Jounin attire, but her vest was gray and her arms were exposed except for the metal guards on her forearms, revealing an umbu tattoo on her right shoulder. On her back was a sheathed katana, indicating she must have some kenjutsu training. She stood next to Ibiki and placed her left hand on her hip as she looked over the crowd. My, there's a lot more than I expected here. Did you actually go easy on them, Ibiki? She asked. You doubt my skills. We just got a tough bunch this year. Sure, if you say so. She said as if she didn't buy it, then cleared her throat. Alright kiddies, listen up. I'm Yojao Izuki, and I'm the one in charge of the second portion of this exam. And this is where you start shedding blood, sweat, and tears. Not necessarily in that order. So everybody head outside now. Jounin will escort you all to the location of the next test. With that, she disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Back in Oto, Kushina sat down with Orochimaru in his office. She was drinking a brew tsunade made for her to help balance out her electrolytes since her body was still returning to normal. She probably only had another week or so to get to active ninja appropriate levels, even with the enhanced longevity and recovery that came natural to Uzumaki's. So what's on your mind, Kushina-san? Orochimaru asked, having a sip of tea as well. A lot. Kushina answered wearily. Orochimaru-sama, wait, can I call you that or should I dash? The snake Sunin nodded. Go ahead. We're not doing business and I have no need to pull rank, so my title is unnecessary in this conversation. Kushina nodded. Anyway, what bothers me most is, do you think it was wise to send Naruto into Konoha's clutches like that? Especially since Konoha is currently on alert for ninja from this village. If we don't do it now, we won't have another opportunity for several years. By then we risk Konoha finding out more about us and getting better prepared. With them in the dark and their morale shaken by the weakening of their for now only Uchiha, we have a good chance at hitting them when they're least likely to retaliate in full. Also, there's another reason I wanted Naruto there so soon. What's that? Kushina curiously asked. Orochimaru grinned. It involves making the Uchiha brat suffer a little more when the opportunity comes. And if Subsonic is correct in there being a genjutsu that prevents people from seeing him as Minato's son, then his presence will prove beneficial. Kushina shifted in her seat to get more comfortable. But what if Konoha does something bad to him? She sounded like the idea made her want to weep. It's a risk he's willing to take. And if it makes you feel any better, I'm sure all mothers feel that way regarding their children when they start becoming serious ninja. Speaking of which, did you want to return to active duty someday? First, let me see how my son does and what happens to Konoha. Then maybe, yes I will. But only as long as I get to help instruct Naruto while I'm at it. Orochimaru nodded. I'd actually prefer that. And you need not worry. Something tells me that Naruto is going to be just fine. And if an idea I have works out later, we'll all be just fine too. What idea is that? Kushina asked. Just wait and see, Kushina-san. I wouldn't want to needlessly raise your hopes up. The red-headed woman wanted to argue, but the look on the snake Sunin's face told her not to. She sighed and straightened up a bit more. Orochimaru-sama, if this plan of yours to attack Konoha does go through, I have one request. What is that? Kushina looked him right in the eyes, making Orochimaru gasp at what he now saw, and answered vengefully. Let me deal with the old man who started all this. Orochimaru's surprise turned into a smile. I see. Looks like Naruto wasn't the only one the Kyuubi helped out. All the attending genin were outside and several Konoha Umbu led them towards a gated forest with humongous trees. Teams were reunited and whispering amongst themselves in anticipation. Yojao reappeared while standing on one of the poles of the chain-link fence. Below her were several jounin holding stacks of papers. Alright kids, listen up. Behind me is Konoha's training ground number 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Here the best ninja test their skills against the worst things this or any other forest has to offer. Inside there are vicious man-eating animals, big blood-sucking bugs, quicksand pits you'll never see until it's too late, and even some of the plants are out to kill you. Rest assured, there's no way in hell all of you are coming out of this alive. Yojao then jumped off her pole. That's why before we start, we need all of you to sign some forms of consent. That way, our village can't be held responsible for any deaths and injuries that can, and likely will happen to you all. Even those of you from Konoha have to sign these. So we'll take a 10-minute break for all of you to do so. For convenience we'll just have one form per team that needs 3 signatures. The jounin started handing out forms to all the teams one at a time, staying close by to later take them back. The one who approached the 3 Oto teams was none other than Ebisu, although none of them knew anything about him. Here you 9 go. Just where are you from anyway? I've never seen that symbol before. He asked them. Naruto just shrugged and looked over the form. Not saying. Ninja need their secrets. But could you tell me why such a supposedly dangerous forest has just a mere chain-link fence keeping people out and threats in? Ebisu momentarily looked at the fence, suddenly wondering that himself. It does the job, that's the important thing. 2 minutes later all 9 Otonin had signed their forms and returned them to the spectacled jounin. Good luck kids. You're going to need it. He added before he walked away. 12 minutes were needed for all forms to be given to Yojao, who accepted them without even looking at them. There was no need, as the jounin who handed them out would never hand them to her if they weren't fully signed. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'll start explaining the rules of this part of the exam. She then jumped back on top of the pole to ensure everyone could see her, both hands on her hips. As the smarter of you have probably already guessed, you'll have to face a survival test. This test, however, will last 5 days, and once you start you absolutely cannot quit. Just as with missions, you cannot accept then just decide you changed your mind before you finish. There may be some exceptions to that rule, but not in this case. Yojao started. You will have 5 days to complete your goal and reach your destination without your jounin senseis there to keep you in line or cover your backs. Those fit to be Chiryunin should be able to handle situations like that and know the best way to get the best results. Yojao then pulled out 2 scrolls she had strapped at her sides. One was black and had the kanji for earth on it, and the other was blue and had the kanji for heaven on it. These scrolls are your tickets to the next part of the exam. Literally. Each team will start out carrying a single scroll. Your goal is to acquire the opposite one by any means necessary and have your complete team reach the tower in the center of the forest by noon on the 5th day. Any teams missing a member or a matching set of scrolls will be forbidden entry into the tower and next portion of the exam. And any team can possess the opposite scroll and will fight to keep theirs and take yours from you. She saw several genin look at their teammates and allies as they took this all in. So in short, at most half of you will be able to make it to the third round. But keep in mind you'll not only be facing rival ninja, but the terrain and environment itself at the same time. And you'll have to manage on your own but keep your team cooperative to fully succeed. This is no place to try pulling rank amongst yourselves and trying to feel big. Your lives are on the line, so don't go digging your own grave by doing stupid shit like that. At that time Kiba and Sasuke were practically glaring at each other as if saying, "Don't you dare think I'm letting you be the one in charge." Yojao just kept continuing her lecture, about to finish. So now that you know the objective of this test, here are the rules you need to keep in mind. Do not open the scrolls or you will suffer for it and be disqualified. Do not try to leave the enclosed area for the same reason. Do not come to the tower late or without all your team members. You are allowed to team up with other teams for this test, but all teams need their own set of scrolls to qualify for the next portion. You are to treat this as a real-life situation and mission, so killing is not forbidden, but I don't recommend you go looking for the chance to do it. Other than that, just try to survive. Any questions? Yeah, what do we do about food if we're going to be in there for 5 days? A chubby Konoha genin asked while raising his hand. Live off the land. Many things in the food are edible and the water is drinkable, so you shouldn't worry about starving. And you are allowed to bring provisions. Hopefully you all brought them and first aid with you for this test beforehand along with weapons. You're going to need them. Anything else? A blonde girl next to the chubby boy raised her hand. Yeah. What about hot baths or a change of clothes? Will they be provided? Yojao, many jounin, and several ninja in the crowd groaned in annoyance. What do you think this is? A vacation? Listen very carefully, girl, this is not a place of luxury or a comfortable situation. Your life will be at risk and you will have to fight every day here just to stay alive. Staying clean and well dressed should be the last of your worries. If you absolutely must prioritize that, then take a dunk in one of the rivers and have the foresight to bring an extra set of clothes. Even so, I pity you as a kunoichi if you think like that. Worry about whether or not you bleed than whether or not you smell nice. Now, are there any serious questions? Naruto raised his hand. Yeah. What happens to a team that reaches the goal before the 5 days are up? Yojao smiled. Now that's a good one. The tower will provide rooms and food and hot water to any and all teams who make it there ahead of schedule. Think of it as a brief break before we get to the third round. You'll be free to do as you please as long as it doesn't break any village laws, and all teams will need to be in the entry room at noon 5 days from now to be considered acceptable participants for the next tests. Anyone else? Nobody replied, so Yojao decided to wrap it up. In that case, just stay there and let the jounin hand you your scroll. Keep quiet about which kind it is and don't even try to take one before you actually get inside the forest. Oh, I almost forgot. There are multiple entrances into the forest and you all will be assigned a gate to enter from, making it that much hard to find enemies and allies right away. So best of luck to you all and make your village proud. With that, she disappeared and the jounin handed out scrolls and randomly assigned gate numbers. Naruto's team got gate 14 and an earth scroll. Kin's team got gate 27 and a heaven scroll. Sasami, Haku, and Fu got gate 29 and an earth scroll. Gaara's team got gate 44 and a heaven scroll. They gave each other acknowledging nods before they headed to their assigned gates. Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi had to take the long route to avoid their Hitaites being spotted by Sasuke, Sakura, and Kiba. Everyone got ready, then a siren went off and the gates burst open. All teams headed right into the Forest of Death. A few minutes went by before Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi stopped running and stood at the base of a large tree. Okay, we need a plan to get through this quickly. Any suggestions? Naruto started off with. We should try to get the other scroll by ourselves first. Isaribi suggested. If people see us with the others all the time, it'll tell them we're easy pickings and maybe we're plotting something together. Well, we are plotting something, but I get the idea and agree. Hinata said with a nod. Then she faced Naruto. Which scroll do we already have again? Naruto pulled it out of his pack. He was carrying it since they decided he was the best choice for keeping it to themselves. An Earth one. So we need a Heaven one. Why don't we find a Konoha team and take one from them? Hinata asked with a playful smile. It'll be easy for me to find us one. But what do we do when we find one? We shouldn't just barge in blindly. Nor limit ourselves to just Konoha teams either. Isaribi asked. Naruto nodded. Hina-chan, what can you tell us about the nearest teams? Hinata activated her Byakugan and looked around. There are two teams nearby, the ones that used the gates on either side of the one we used, and both possess an Earth Scroll as well. We should avoid them to conserve our strength then, since the fight would be pointless for us and them in the end. But they don't know that, so they may pursue us anyway. Then let's get moving. Naruto replied as he hid the scroll again. The two girls nodded and continued running. Hinata still had her Byakugan on, and soon panicked as shadows appeared above them all. Look out! At the same time, three Kunoichi ran along the tree branches and planned out their own strategy. So do we fight every unknown team we see and go from there, or scout them first to see if they're worth the trouble? Fu asked. Scout first, obviously. Haku answered. Why would we do it the other way? That's just reckless. Sasami added. We'd have the element of surprise then and eliminate most of the competition that way. Fu explained. But only if we won each time. Sasami countered. You're forgetting our group have a Jinhuriki with a sneaky Kekkei Genkai, which gives us a huge advantage. Fu responded with a grin. A Jinhuriki? How nice. Let's see how tough you are, girly. Some unseen man's voice said from out of nowhere. Crap, we're being ambushed. Sasami said as she drew out a blade gauntlet she strapped onto her right hand and forehead and came to a stop. Fu pulled out a dagger and Haku grabbed some senbon as the three got back to defend themselves from whoever had overheard them. Meanwhile, Kin, Zaku, and Dosa were trying to avoid a thick cluster of thorn bushes by jumping from tree to tree above them. So what's the plan? Zaku asked. I say we should try to get to the tower quickly to avoid most of the traps here and handle any other teams that try to assault us along the way. Kin suggested. No way, that's no fun. We should go find someone and take their scroll from them, then go to the tower. Dosa countered. I agree. I want to have some fun while I can. Your idea is just stupid, Kin. Zaku added. No, I'm trying to be realistic. The Kunoichi argued. In case you haven't noticed, this is hostile territory and we don't exactly make the best assault-style team. Your idea of charging head-on in will cost us a lot. Our best chance lies in a sneak attack. Like if we surprised someone already on their way to the goal. The two boys were silent for a moment. Okay, that's smarter than I gave you credit for, but it just sounds so boring. Zaku commented. Kin turned her head to give her teammate an irritated look. We're not here to have fun, you baka. Doesn't mean we can't. Lighten up, Kin babe. Stop calling me that. Kin all but shouted. Dosa kept to himself but also kept his focus on his surroundings. Which is what probably saved his team the most in the next few seconds. Down. Now. He told his teammates as he descended to the base of the giant tree. What the? Kin and Zaku asked themselves, then got their answer in the form of a giant fireball approaching them from the front. Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara were running across the ground and, being the slowest of the four allied teams, were behind all the others distance-wise. Fortunately they were in a relatively open area, so they had hospitable terrain for now. Being desert-based shinobi, they knew they had a big disadvantage in the forest, especially against any Konoha teams. So we agreed to find one of the Oto teams as quick as possible so we can back each other up. Temari asked her brothers. Oto was more experienced in these environments. You have to ask. Kankuro asked back, then he smirked teasingly. You know, if you want to hang around your boy toy some more, you can make a better excuse than that, Nei-san. Remind me to hit you for that later. The short ponytailed girl replied. Can do. Gaara said, worrying Kankuro. Soon the open part of the training ground came to an end and they had to enter the actual forest. The trip stuck to the ground and walked through slowly for two purposes. The first was to be more aware of any approaching threat, and the second was to make themselves a more appealing target to enemy ninjas. They were going ninja fishing with themselves as the bait, but bait that could fight back and take the scroll they needed. All of a sudden a group of small birds quickly flew away and a twig could be heard snapping. Temari grabbed her fan, Kankuro grasped the wrapping on his karaso, and Gaara just stood his ground as all three awaited the approacher. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a tiger that walked out from behind a tree. This could be a problem. Kankuro muttered. CH-43 Counter-Strike. With a swing of Temari's fan and some of Gaara's sand, the tiger was quickly gotten rid of without a trace but likely still alive somewhere. They wouldn't have to worry about it coming back anytime soon though. When they finished, Temari looked at Kankuro with a cocky smile. And you were worried? Easy for you to say. You wouldn't have to risk damaging your weapon to get rid of something like that. I'd rather not try to break my puppet before we actually encounter someone. Kankuro defended himself. Ah, but that was just a big cat. I bet I could find a young cub and take it home and make it a pet. Temari countered, saying it in an uncharacteristically girly manner that made it impossible to tell if she was being serious or not. Oh sure, and where would you keep a jungle cat in the desert? Kankuro asked sarcastically. We have oases. Those are public training and resting grounds. Quiet both of you. Gaara interjected sternly. There might be more. I doubt it. Temari argued. I heard tigers are territorial, so there's little risk of seeing another anytime soon. If that's true, then wouldn't the tiger's territory be deeper than this, closer to the denser part of the forest? Gaara asked. I guess. What's your point? Kakuro asked. I think we may have bigger threats here than we were led to believe. The dark-eyed Jinhuriki said. Not sure what to say, the three Sunanin continued on their way. Kin, Zaku, and Dosu all luckily dodged the giant fireball by diving under it. None of them counterattacked since they didn't see the enemy yet and they didn't know any area affecting jutsus yet. Note to self, see if Kabuto-sensei can teach us some of those when we get out of this. Kin thought. The fire evaporated into smoke, leaving some lasting burn marks on the trees. Now that they were warned, the three Oto Genin got out their weapons. Dosu readied his sound blaster, Zaku cleared his pipes, and Kin grabbed a few senbon. In the meantime they still tried to go forward on the trees rather than stop and make themselves an easier target. At the end of the thorn collection they saw their assaulters. They didn't know them personally, but they recognized the description right away. They came to a stop in front of the other team, creating a ninja standoff. Zaku spoke first. Duck-ass hair on one, pink hair on another, with a white dog. Yep. You three must be the douchebags we heard so much about. What did you call us? Kiba angrily asked. Douchebag, douchebag, douchebag. Zaku repeated. Zaku, remember what Kabuto-sensei said about antagonizing the enemy. Kin warned. Yeah, that we should do it as much as possible. He replied. It makes it harder for them to focus so their fighting gets sloppy. Kiba growled fearfully. You think you're so big? At least we come from a real village. Enough. What we really want to know is where are the rest of your group? We want the ones from your village we already met. Sasuke declared. Speak for yourself, Sasuke. You're the one that wants that, so don't go speaking for me like that. Kiba stated to his teammate. Ah, does the mutt not like taking orders? You know what happens to disobedient dogs. Dosu jested. Let's get him Akamaru. Kiba said as he ran towards Dosu. Looks like at least one of you has any guts. Zaku said condescendingly. I'll show you who has guts. Sasuke said as he pulled out a kunao. And I'll take out your own while I'm at it. Sakura looked towards the Oto Kunoichi, wondering what to do, only to see she had disappeared. What the dash? She was cut off by a kick from behind that sent her towards the ground. She didn't reach it since something grabbed her hair from behind, causing her scalp to hurt badly, along with a foot pressing down on her back. Nice hair. Kin said. Free advice from one kunoichi to another. If you have the time to make your hair this soft and glossy for a mission, you're going to get in trouble for neglecting the real necessities. Sakura looked at Sasuke, hoping he would help her. But unfortunately he wasn't even looking at her, just focusing on his opponent. However, Sasuke's wind jutsus made it impossible for him to get close enough to do damage. And the Uchiha's fire techniques were just blown away from their target. Kiba and Akamaru weren't doing much better themselves against Doso's Melody Gauntlet. Sasuke-kun, help me. She silently pleaded. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a split second, a dome of Naruto's was made to protect the original along with Hinata and Isaribi from whatever was coming at them. What is it? Isaribi asked. Leeches. Giant leeches. The size of big dogs. Hinata answered. Isaribi looked confused. That can't be. Leeches can't get that big, and even if they did they'd be too heavy to move or breathe outside water, let alone climb into trees that high. Tell them that. Hinata replied hostily. Girls, my clones can't last much longer. Let's go. Naruto said, revealing a gap between his clones they could use to leave. A few clones dispelled and it looked like the giant leeches were after the people with real blood. So the three genin got away quickly. Seriously, those leeches weren't normal. Something has to be going on here. Isaribi continued. So what do you think? Hinata asked. I'm thinking this place has traps already set up by the locals. I don't think we're facing just natural obstacles here. Konoha does not want many of us to pass this test. Remember that woman was surprised so many got through the first test? And said at most half of us would pass this one, but she said it like she didn't believe that would happen. So you're saying this test may be fixed to be more dangerous than it should be on its own? Naruto asked. Well, leeches are by nature aquatic animals, so why else would they be in treetops? The swimming enthusiastic asked, but her teammates gave no answer. Hinata, who still had her Byakugan active, saw something of interest right then. Never mind that now, we should probably go north-northeast now. Why? Naruto and Isaribi asked, even though they did turn that way with her. One of our guys may need some help. Sasami, Fu, and Haku jumped out of the trees and landed on the ground to dodge a cluster of kunai thrown at them from whoever spotted them. None threw their weapons, waiting to see the target first. The target landed in front of them, revealed to be a trio of men from AIM wearing beige jumpsuits with longer than needed sleeves and breathing masks. Oddly, one of them had one eye covered while another had both eyes completely covered. Nice, 3 girls. That's something you don't see every day. The AIM nin with both eyes visible said. Careful. One of them is a Jinhiriki apparently. The cycloptic AIM nin added cautiously. Then we better subdue her first. Won't Leader Sama be pleased to have one so soon? Few didn't like the sound of that. Fortunately they don't appear to know which one of us it is. But me just mentioning it should make me their first guess. Haku did a set of hand signs and the air suddenly got colder. Not that the AIM nin minded it much, as their outfits were insulating as least. Ice style, crystal ice mirrors jutsu. A dome of ice panels appeared around the enemy and Haku stepped into one. You 3 won't be going anywhere. The 3 AIM nin responded by trying to escape in 3 separate directions, figuring they couldn't be blocked completely. However, Sasami and Fu quickly got in front of the 2 closest to them while Haku shifted towards the third. Ice style, 1000 needles jutsu. Haku called out, creating many ice needles that fired out of her mirrors towards them all. Earth style, trap chasm jutsu. Sasami declared with her hands thrust into the ground, creating a large but not too deep fissure that stopped one AIM nin from advancing. Wind style, cyclone fist jutsu. Fu proclaimed as a small tornado formed around each arm and fired off at her own target, forcing him back towards the center of the dome. Haku smiled at their teamwork. Being a team for over a year, they had gotten this method down to a T. She trapped them and her 2 teammates ensured no one got out through the gaps in the mirrors, or in through the gaps either. It was much better than doing it all by herself, which would have been taxing on her concentration. All 3 AIM nin took a hit, but when they did they dissolved into mud. Oh crap. We're fighting clones. Fu said, briefly worried. The 3 AIM nin appeared from behind Fu. And now we know your tricks. Fu turned and glared at them. Damn, now that they saw the ice dome, getting them into it will be next to impossible. And how do I know these aren't more clones? Only one way to find out. She grabbed a kunao and threw it at the center shinobi. The Aimnin caught it, unamused by the effort. He was about to snidely retort, until he saw the lit paper bomb attached. Fu meanwhile dashed inside Haku's ice dome for safety, and the bomb exploded before the catcher could drop it. The smoke cleared and Haku got rid of the dome, finding it unnecessary now. The three kunoichi saw no remains of their foes. More clones? Sasami asked. Likely. We better keep an eye out for them so AIM doesn't learn about us. Haku said, covering for Fu in case the real ninja were still listening. Great. Another objective. Fu sarcastically added. Sasami looked at the surrounding trees. What's the matter? A bunch of tough men like yourselves afraid to fight us girls head on? I heard Omegakure was a nothing village and you guys just proved that right. That did the trick. The real AIM trio showed up in front of them. Alright girlie, now you're in for it. The one-eyed one moved first, his baggy sleeves hiding his hand signs before he slammed his palms on the ground. Earth style, mud flood jutsu. A huge wall of mud rose and then rushed towards the girls like a sort of horizontal avalanche. Unable to counter, the kunoichis dodged by jumping onto the low branches of the trees. Fu threw two more kunao with paper bombs attached, but the targets dodged that and joined them in the branches. One of the Aimnin moved his sleeves to reveal a senbon launcher and fired it. All three girls used their kunaos to deflect them, but Sasami took 2 hits in her left thigh. Ice style, 1000 needles jutsu. Haku countered with, but got a few more hits. She and Sasami threw a few shuriken while Fu vanished. The Aimnin blocked them and looked cocky even with their faces covered. Ha! And you said our village was pathetic. Yours has to be even worse. The one-eyed one mocked. Haku and Sasami looked at each other and nodded. Thank Kami for Naruto-kun's twisted mind. Haku said to her teammate. Sexy jutsu costume version. The two girls shouted together before transforming. Haku became an adult version of herself, but blonde and wearing a kinky nurse's outfit, guaranteed to raise a patient's blood pressure, and Sasami become an adult brunette wearing a black cat girl costume with a belled collar, posing like a happy kitten. The men looked at them strongly for 5 seconds before they all had nosebleeds, even the one with no visible eyes. They tried to turn away to save what blood they had left and avoid drowning inside their masks, but realized they were exposing their backs and turned to face the girls again. This time, to their relief and disappointment, they were back to normal. And 3 seconds later Fury appeared and nodded at her teammates. The lead Aimnin looked ready to do something, but a strong burst of wind from behind knocked him and his teammates out of the tree and face first in the dirt. Haku, Fu, and Sasami were spared the brunt of the force, and knew why the instant Temari showed up on one of the remaining branches. Hi you three. Need a hand? The Suna blonde asked. It couldn't hurt. Sasami answered as she removed the needles in her leg. Down on the ground, Gaara and Kankuro were already handling the Aimnin. Actually, Gaara stood back for a moment, letting his brother get a shot in because the Tsunajin hierarchy would take all the fun if he did anything first. Kankuro didn't have the time to analyze his opponents since they were swaggering to their feet, recovering from Temari's surprise attack. Acting on instinct, he wrapped his Karasu puppet and attached his chakra strings. He made it fire a stream of poison-tipped senbon from its mouth, hitting the two Aimnin with covered eyes. Why are they blinding themselves in the first place? He briefly asked himself. The Oto Kunoichi trio and Temari softly landed on the ground by the men, ready to keep fighting. Gaara raised his right hand in an open grasping fashion. Sand coffin. Sand he already had scattered on the forest floor before Temari attacked rose up and engulfed the bodies of the AIM shinobi. Then he closed his hand in a tight fist. Sand burial. The mounds of sand compressed themselves, crushing the trapped people inside with hundreds of pounds of pressure per square inch. Thanks a lot Gaara. Now neither of our teams can get their scroll and get out of here quicker. Kankuro complained. Fu smiled and pulled a scroll out of her pocket. Already got it. Haku-chan and Seisumi-chan provided the distraction I needed to sneak it out of their pockets. It's a heaven scroll, by the way. The one we need. Damn, we need an earth scroll. You three keep it then. We'll find another. Tamari said. Good luck. See you at the tower. The Kunoichi said before they parted ways with the Suna group, who went out hunting again. Kin, Zaku, and Dosa were still busy with the efforts made by Kiba, Suzuki, and Sakura. Sakura finally did something by cutting off the hair that Kin had been holding and got away, but now she was primarily on the defensive. Suzuki was holding his own but not as much as he wanted to, and Kiba with Akamaru was giving everyone a challenge once they did their Fang over Fang combo. Dosu and Zaku wisely decided to switch opponents, as Zaku could handle two targets better than Dosu could. Kiba and Suzuki thought little of it as they still had someone to defeat and, in their minds, easily get to kick the other's ass once they finished the current one in front of them. Sakura and Kin faced off against each other, the pinkette in a defensive stance with a Kunao and the brunette in an offensive stance with several Senbon, both waiting for the other to move. Sakura suddenly felt a sharp sting of pain in the back of both knees, instantly making her fall down as if kneeling. What the dash? She asked and felt for the problem, finding a Senbon in both her knees. How did you? The Kin in front of her faded into nothing. A clone. The real Kin kicked her on the back, making her opponent land on her face. You have no imagination. It had actually been a minor genjutsu that tricked the victim into seeing the caster as if they were standing still, waiting to make a move, which allowed the real Kin to move behind her victim without being noticed as long as she was quiet. Kiba suddenly went after Kin, forcing the brunette to dodge. The dog nin paused for a moment. You okay, Sakura? Yeah, thanks Kiba. She said quietly as she pulled out the Senbon. Want me to handle her for a moment? If you can, go ahead. Sakura tried to look at Suzuki, who hadn't even glanced her way yet, too preoccupied with his own fight with Dosa. Fang over Fang. Kiba attacked with Akamaru, aimed at Kin. She performed a substitution with a rock, which Kiba hit head-on, knocking him out briefly. Akamaru pounced on the girl and bit her left thigh, making her cry out. Suddenly someone came over and grabbed the small dog, making him let go from surprise. Hey! Bad dog! No biting! Naruto-kun! Kin happily said at seeing the disguised blonde. He hated doing it, but Naruto had to toss Akamaru away before the dog tried attacking him. The puppy growled but decided tending to its partner was a bigger priority now. Of all the guys to face, we had to run right into these ones. Naruto lamented. Dosa was keeping Suzuki at bay with high-frequency sound waves, but Suzuki had a good counter for that defense. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. 3 fireballs shot out of his mouth aimed right at Dosu as he tried to dodge to the side. Water style, Water Wall Jutsu. Isaribi called out just before a wall of water rushed up from Suzuki's left to defend the maimed mummy. Where'd that water come from? There are no rivers or ponds near here. Suzuki asked himself. He was already frowning at his attack being deflected, but his frown turned into a glare when he saw who deflected it. You. Isaribi gave him a smug look. Well, I'll be damned. It's the red-eyed bastard. Oh wait, you don't have red eyes anymore. Suzuki never caught this girl's name or skills, but he knew she was with the group he encountered in Wave. The music note emblem was proof enough. Were you the one who did that to me? He demanded to know as he readied himself for some lethal jutsu. No, but I'm not going to tell you who did. Hinata tried to attack Suzuki from behind with a strike to the head, but he heard her footsteps. So he retaliated by turning around, grabbing her wrists, and throwing her over his back and towards Hinata. This was a basic defensive maneuver of the Uchiha's intercepting fist taijutsu. But once the two girls were in the same spot, he did something even worse. Fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened and his heart stopped for a moment when he saw his teammates engulfed by flames before they could get away. Then he became pissed, and red chakra started to cover him like a cloak. Kin smiled at the boy she admired. Go get Naruto-kun. Before he did, the flame went out and 2 more growing chakra auras could be sensed. Hinata and Isaribi had some of their clothes burned off and their skin was healing from the burns they got, but the most noticeable thing was that both were covered in their stage 1 curse markings and purple-black chakra auras. And they looked pissed too. "What the hell are you three?" Sasuke asked in fearful awe as his eyes darted between Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi. "Enemies of the leaf." Isaribi started. "We're shinobi," Hinata added. "Of the sound." Naruto finished. Ch44 Fear. Sasuke was known for many things. His Uchiha name and now former status as such, his now gone legion of fangirls, his legacy of being the sole survivor of the Uchiha massacre, most people ignoring the fact that Itachi never actually endangered him that night, and his antisocial arrogant behavior. But one thing he was not known for, was being cowardly. And while he might not be a coward, right there, staring at the genin with sinister auras, Sasuke Uchiha was admittedly fearful. He was standing before 3 shinobi without his Sharingan being a usable option, all 3 using some sort of power he couldn't predict. And worse of all, he knew his skills might not be good enough to counter. For the past few weeks, after being put down by everyone for now being a Sharingan-less nobody, Sasuke trained himself privately every spare moment to convince himself they were wrong and he was still superior to all other carbon-based life forms. Only to find out his speed, strength, and accuracy were below his expectations. At first he thought he was just too angry to focus and calmed himself repeatedly. However, much to his dismay, his skills didn't instantly improve. He could still remember the harsh truth being rubbed in his face. Flashback. "Something wrong, Sasuke?" Kakashi asked when he noticed his student was brooding even more than usual. "Whoever took away my Sharingan weakened my skills apparently," the young Uchiha replied. Kakashi tilted his head sideways towards his left. "What makes you say that?" "Because when I test myself now I'm not getting the results I used to get back in the academy. My running times slowed down, my punches make less of an impact on my targets, and I'm missing more shots in target practice now," Sasuke explained. "And you believe the absence of your Sharingan is to blame here?" Kakashi asked, getting a nod as his answer. Sasuke, you didn't have your Sharingan back at the academy, so by your own logic you should be no different than you were back then. Not worse. And just so you know, I've done the same and I haven't gotten any worse than before. But how else could this have happened? I'm not going to enjoy what happens next, I just know it," the Jounin told himself before speaking. "Don't you remember the council telling you they gave you many luxuries without you knowing to make you feel important? Is it possible they rigged your scores and tests to make you feel better than you actually are?" Sasuke then looked like he couldn't decide if he believed or disbelieved the idea. In the end he decided it was too far-fetched for his tastes. Why would they need to? I'm an elite, so that would do exactly what the council wanted, which was fill your head with delusions of grandeur, wouldn't it? Kakashi cut in. They gave you everything you wanted to get on your good side, Sasuke, and to put you in debt to them. Remember, they ordered some stores to give you reduced prices and they granted you more access to your clan resources than any other clan heir, even last ones, would be entitled to at your age. Is it really that hard to imagine they may have ensured your tests were rigged to guarantee you felt like the best, even if you weren't truly qualified for it on a fair basis? Sasuke frowned, but doubt had already been planted in his mind. Could he be right? But I know I did the best times and hit the most targets. How could that be rigged? Later that same night Kakashi would retrieve the academy files on the history of his students, something Jounin were entitled to do to find problem areas in their students' skills. After he got them, he stopped by Sasuke's apartment to show him the contents of his own file of achievements. Sasuke was shocked and insulted. What the? Whenever I came in first in the runs and obstacle courses, they reduced the time recorded to make me sound faster. And the Taijutsu instructors were instructed to take a dive whenever it was my turn if they wanted to keep their jobs? Huh? The targets for target practice had special magnets inside them that only worked with the jutsu the teachers used when it was my turn, guaranteeing a hit each time? Dear Kami-sama, if this is true, then how good am I really without someone letting me win at everything? End flashback. Sasuke still wasn't too sure of the answer. Part of the reason he wanted to enter the Chunin exams was to find out for certain, since Kakashi told him no one would hold back against him. The chance at revenge on those he met in Wave was just icing on the cake. Now, as he stood there, facing 3 of the genin he saw in Wave, each radiating a dangerous energy and looking like a coiled snake ready to strike, he started thinking he made a mistake. All 3 Oto genin took a stance. Hinata and Isaribi took the stance of snake-style taijutsu, which kept their legs close together but their arms apart, the right one usually pulled back and the left put ahead. The intent was so they could strike first and dodge any counter-attack within seconds, just like a viper. Hinata had her hands unclenched while Isaribi did. Naruto meanwhile took Jiraiya's toad-style stance instead, where his legs were bent outwards and his right hand was on the ground in front of him with his left hand in a ready fist. The intent was to wait like a toad for the enemy's first move, then retaliate. The 2 girls were the first to attack, with Naruto settling for keeping the Uchiha's teammates from coming to his rescue or attacking the other Oto team. It wasn't too hard, as Sakura was scared shitless of the sight before her, and Kiba, now recovered from his hit, was too confused to know what to do with 3 glowing enemies. Hinata and Isaribi ran towards the lone Uchiha, Hinata's Byakugan active but her contacts hiding her true eye color and her hair somewhat covering her bulging veins. Isaribi pulled out a longer than normal kunai and weaved to get behind Sasuke while Hinata got in front of him and took the focus of his attention. Once behind him, the purple-haired girl crouched down and jabbed her kunai into his back, missing his spine, giving him a nasty wound. Hinata meanwhile gathered sharp chakra points at her fingertips and struck many of Sasuke's tenketsu, making him scream even more. Kiba thought now might be a good time to intervene before his teammate got killed and he himself could not advance any further. He got up and on all fours with Akamaru jumping on his back. But before they could do anything, Naruto got in front of them and snarled. The 2 boys then started trying to hold the other back in a direct face-off, each blocking the other's hands with their own and trying to push them back. Kiba used his claws to wound Naruto's hands at first, but Kyuubi's chakra started to burn his own, making him try to back off. However, Naruto used his own claws to hold the Inuzuka in place, furthering the pain. Sakura looked between her 2 victimized teammates, not sure who to help or how. She looked first to Sasuke, who turned to catch Isaribi, but she dodged overhead and got some mono wire out which she spun around him in that moment. It was easy since Hinata's fighting style made him slower than normal, and now that he was almost completely immobile, the Byakugan wielder could use this rare opportunity to attack every tenketsu on the human body, front, back and side rather than just the front. Acting on impulse, albeit delayed, Sakura got up to rush over and fight the other kunoichi. Unfortunately she was blocked by Kin, Zaku, and Dosu. Kin kept making glances towards the power radiating Naruto though for a moment. He's so hot right now. If I wasn't so certain Hinata would kill me for it, I'll try seducing him once this was over. Don't count us out just yet, Zaku said as he flexed his hands. Sakura reacted in the only way she could see that would give her team the best results. If I give you guys our scroll, will you and them leave us be? The 3 Oto genin shared a look. That depends on what it is, Dosu answered. Sakura pulled out her team's Earth Scroll. Since Sasuke and Kiba couldn't agree amongst themselves, she took it upon herself to do it instead. Zaku smirked. Perfect, we need that one. Thanks Pinky, he said as he took it. Then you'll leave us be? Sakura asked. We will, but we can't promise our comrades will, Kin replied. Ignoring Sakura's shocked expression, the brunette kunoichi calmly approached Naruto, who was still struggling against Kiba and Akamaru, who was trying to bite the Jinchuriki's ankle off it seemed. She brushed the puppy aside with her foot and leaned in to whisper in her love interest's ear. We got their scroll, so try and finish things up here quickly if you can. Okay Naruto-kun. Then she quickly kissed his cheek, figuring Hinata wouldn't notice. Then she and her teammates left. Naruto chose to do as the girl said and end this right away. He let go off Kiba, allowing the dog Nin to back away and fan his burnt hands for a moment. Then he ran up to him and punched him right in the jaw, sending him flying and crashing into a tree head first. Akamaru wisely decided to leave this enemy alone now. Naruto admired his handiwork for a brief second. It's a shame he went down. He might have been a good challenge, had I actually given him a chance to fight back. Then he turned to see how 2 of his confirmed 8 girls were doing. It looked like they were doing well, as Sasuke was face down on the ground but still breathing, and they both stood over him ready to dish out more pain. Good job, girls. I'm glad you didn't kill him. I'd really like to though. Hinata said, not sure if it was the curse mark's influence or not. Why can't we? Isaribi asked. Because I promised a certain someone we wouldn't. At least not yet, unless he killed one of our own. Naruto answered, his red chakra cloak fading away. He came awfully close with you two, but not close enough. So we gotta let him live for now. And who did you promise? Isaribi asked the disguised blonde. Subsonic. They've got something special planned for this guy later on, if you catch my drift. Hinata nodded. Ah, that makes sense. So what now? Isaribi asked. This. Naruto said before making his hand glow with green chakra, and he placed it on Sasuke's face after he turned the boy over. Sakura watched in wonder. What are you doing? The Jinhuriki didn't even look at her as he answered. You and everyone else will find out in a month or 2. If he lives that long, that is. Finished, he stood straight up again. The others got their scroll, so we should move on. They nodded, and then jumped into the trees, heading elsewhere. Naruto-kun, why did you use a healing jutsu on that jerk? Hinata asked, she and Isaribi making their curse marks recede. It was Ji-san's idea. Remember how thanks to what I did in Wave that guy can't use his precious Sharingan for 2 more months. When he gets it back, that's going to let Konoha know that my ability to take away their bloodlines is only temporary, which will make them less afraid of us. So how do we deal with that? Ji-san came up with the idea to do a jutsu for show, with unknowing witnesses around, that would let the Uchiha and everyone else in Konoha think someone gave him back his Jujutsu. Wait. So you're saying that you did that just so when the seals fade and he gets his eyes back, he'll think it wasn't supposed to happen on its own? He'll think the only reason he got it back is because you gave it back to him, rather than it being a timed thing. Isaribi asked. Naruto nodded. Yep. His teammate will tell him I did some kind of jutsu to his face, his eyes come back in time if he lives that long, and no one knows the real reason why. Making Oto look like it has total control over the bloodlines of other villages. I like it. Hinata commented. Me too. Someone else said as they caught up to the 3 genin. Sakura, now able to move her legs without them trembling, came over to check on her teammate's well-being. He appeared dazed and out of it with blood pooling underneath himself and many small bruises on his skin, but that was it. Oh, Sasuke-kun. She said with a few tears as she pulled out her first aid kit. She turned him over so she could see his back and tend to his wounds. She tried to pull up his shirt, but he ineffectively swapped her hand away. Don't even think about it. But how else am I supposed to patch you up? Sure, that's how it'll start. Then you'll get eager to see and do more, and I'm in no mood for that. He irritably claimed, clenching his teeth in an effort to bear the pain. Healing you is a bigger priority, Sasuke-kun, and you need my help. She replied matter-of-factly. Sasuke tried to sternly look at her as she unfurled some gauze. No, I don't. I can handle this myself. Go help out the mud if you feel you must touch a guy now. He was somewhat surprised to see the Kunoichi give him an annoyed look rather than a diligent one. Fine. If you've got the energy to argue, then go ahead and treat yourself. But know this, Sasuke-kun, I'm still one of the few people in this village that treat you as someone special. Do you really want to turn me away too? She got up and headed towards Kiba rather than await Sasuke's response. In all honesty, Sasuke actually did want Sakura to treat his wounds, if only to conserve his own strength and have someone who could get a better look at his injuries do the job. But his Uchiha pride demanded he not just let her do it, rather he deny so she'd insist and go ahead only to get it done. He did not expect her to decide to let up like that. Could even she be losing respect for me, like the others? He asked himself, not sure if he should like the idea or not. Ah, Subsonic, what are you doing here? Naruto asked his group's new guest. I'm just keeping an eye on my favorite genins. Gotta make sure this test isn't rigged like I suspect it is. the disguised ninja answered as they kept pace with the younger ones. Rigged? Isaribi asked. Subsonic nodded. Yeah, I have a feeling that Hokage-sama decided to set up this test in a specific way once he found out Oto was joining. Part of it is to test the new village's strength, and the other is to see if it's directly responsible for what happened to their last Uchiha. That doesn't sound too bad. We can handle that, right? Hinata commented. It gets worse. Subsonic continued. You're too young to know this, but almost every one of the 5 major hidden villages rig these tests. They claim they're just using a home field advantage, but history shows the ones most likely to advance to the final rounds and actually get promoted are the ones native to the village hosting the test. Wait, so you're saying that the only ones who really stand a chance at getting a genin promotion are the Konoha genin? Isaribi asked. No, but the odds are in their favor. Think about it. Chunin exams attract business to the villages and the ones who appear the strongest get the most business. To appear the strongest, the village needs to have the most advanced genin and the most promotions. That tricks the payers of missions into thinking one village has more qualified ninja for hire than another, even if they're more expensive or harder to reach. So you're saying that each village to an extent sets up this test to give its own genin an unfair edge so in the end they earn more money for the village? Hinata asked, somewhat apauled by the idea. That's exactly what I'm saying. Subsonic replied. Konoha may be a ninja village but it needs funding just like any other. And like ninja, it may go about the job in a sneaky way. Oto would probably do the same if it got the chance to host the exams. So do we stand a chance at all or is us being here just to make Konoha look better by beating us at a game they shouldn't lose in the first place? Naruto asked, feeling angry. Oh yeah, if you make it to the final round then yes you do. Konoha isn't allowed to be the only governing body when it comes to deciding promotions. That would be considered an unfair and heavily biased situation. Cages for other villages and even daimyos of other countries come to the village to watch and all are allowed to make their own judgments. Village councils and advisors are allowed to make suggestions too. Of course, final say goes to the cage for each of their respective genin, but they have to explain to their advisors and daimyos why they made such decisions so promotions can't just be handed out. So Konoha can't disqualify us or deny us our chances. Hinata asked. Exactly. Subsonic answered. They're allowed to make reviews on you and pass them, but ultimately the decision is Otokage-sama's. The Hokage can only truly promote or deny his own genin, not someone else's. That's a relief. But are you certain this test is rigged to favor Konoha's chances? Isaribi asked. When you get to the finals, or even some sort of preliminary in the chance that happens, check how many participants are from Konoha and how many aren't. Then you'll see. Until then, I better get going before anyone notices I snuck in here. Good luck. Oh, and before I forget, thanks for sparing Sasuke's life Naruto. Subsonic said before departing. Ch-45 Restless. Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi didn't find anyone else for the rest of the day they had to fight off. When it came time to stop for the night, Hinata found them an open area they could climb into underneath the roots of a large tree. Naruto took the first watch, allowing Hinata and Isaribi to get some sleep. Also his many bloodlines should be enough to counter the efforts of any last-minute attackers. Now, hours later, it was time for a shift change. Both girls woke up, tested for any genjutsus that may have been used in their sleep by someone, and Naruto came inside so one could take his place. Okay girls, who's next? He asked. How about Hinata? Isaribi asked. Said girl gave her teammate a dour look. And why should I? Because it's still dark out. With your eyes you'd have an advantage over me, who can't see that well in the dark. The purple-haired girl explained. The pale-eyed girl didn't look like she bought it. If you can see underwater I'm sure you can handle the low-light vision of night. Yeah but we're in dangerous territory here so we need to use the best advantage we got. Like your eyes. Isaribi replied. Why is she getting so defensive all of a sudden? This isn't like her, but I know it's not someone under a henge. You just want some time to sleep next to Naruto-kun. Hinata said with no small amount of hostility. It would happen later whether or not you took this watch or the next, so what's the problem? Calm down, girls. Naruto said, only to get an annoyed look from Hinata. I can't Naruto-kun because she's trying to get into your sleeping bag with you when my back's turned and get closer to you right under my nose. How am I supposed to be okay with that? Do you think I'm going to do anything more with her tonight than sleep in the same area? He asked. No, but she will. Hinata answered with a pointed look at the swimming enthusiast. Hey, as one of his girls, one chosen by both of you I might add, I have a right to be friendly with him too, you know. Isaribi commented. Only when I approve, and right now I don't. And what if he does? Isaribi asked. It's my choice what happens between my future husband and other girls, and I say hands off until further notice. Hinata declared. Wood style, tree hugger jutsu. Naruto called out with their attention diverted. Instantly many branches came out of the tree base, each with a hand at the end, and all grabbed a hold of the two girls. What the dash? They asked as they felt their arms and legs and even the sides of their torsos grabbed by the wooden hands and lifted off the ground. They both put up a bit of a struggle, but the hands just tightened their grips. What gives, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, more surprised than anything right then. You two need a timeout. Especially you, Hinata. He answered, trying not to look mad but clearly not looking happy either. She now gave him her full attention and a shocked expression. Naruto-kun doesn't use my full name unless he really needs my attention. What's wrong? Did I upset him? Seeing they were listening, Naruto said more. We're in enemy territory now. The enemy is outside these walls, we don't need to turn against each other like this. Especially over something like this. He then looked right at Hinata, his sad gaze making her heart ache. Hinata, lately you've been acting a bit possessive of me. I know I promised that you'd be my real wife, but you're not acting like the girl I fell for. You're acting like you're a little kid being told to share their favorite toy when they don't want to. And I'm that toy. He's got a point. Isaribi said to herself, afraid to voice any thoughts right then since this was mostly between the two of them. Hinata didn't say a word, so Naruto continued. The girl I fell for wasn't a possessive person who regarded me as if I was wearing a sign that said, property of Hinata, hands off until further notice. The girl I fell for wouldn't keep me on a short leash like I'm going to run away first chance I get. The girl I fell for would instead trust me. I do trust you, Naruto-kun. Hinata countered with a few tears being released. It's just, how am I supposed to be special to you when I'm just 1 out of 9? He took a step closer to her. Do you really think I'd treat you like you're just another girl to me? But you said you'd treat all the others as good as you'd treat me. She added. How will I be different than them if I don't reinforce the fact that I'm the alpha girl of the group? Naruto sighed. You don't have to prove anything to them, Hina-chan. Isaribi-chan and the others already know you're the alpha girl, so to speak, and from what I've seen they're not trying to take that away from you. Isaribi-chan was just stating a fact moments ago. At this time of night you do have a visual advantage over her. And even if she did try to sleep right next to me, it's not like I couldn't tell her no or we'd do anything intimate if I did allow her to stay. He's right, you know. Isaribi told Hinata. Naruto made it so the ensnaring tree arms lowered Hinata a bit to allow more leveled eye contact between the two. He then got closer so he could wipe away her tears. Hinata, I don't want to lose you, but, if you keep acting like this, then I'm afraid we won't work out. Hinata could actually feel her heart start to break. Tears practically poured out of her eyes. No, Naruto-kun, anything but that. I love you, I can't bear to lose you like this. Please let me keep being your girlfriend. I love you too, Hina-chan. But you need to learn to share me. I'm sorry, but that's our situation. I need to be with girls that can get along with each other, not fight over who gets more time and whose turn it is to touch me. He told her, a few tears in his own eyes. You know I need to treat the others really good too. Would it be fair to them if I didn't? It doesn't mean you won't be as special to me anymore. But it's my choice when to spend time with the other girls, not just yours. I would let you know when I do, but I'm not going to be some boy toy that girls have to schedule time for. If I may. Isarabi said, catching both of their attentions for a minute. Hinata-chan, maybe with all the time and effort you've been using to ensure your status among us girls, that very thing seems to have been hurting your status to him. Think about that. Hinata did. Is it true? Have I started becoming some kind of territorial jerk? I just wanted to be the most important one in Narukun's heart, and I didn't want the other girls to try to compete with me for that. Isarabi took this opportunity to continue her point. Hinata-chan, I know you're the more important of us all to him. Hell, if he didn't need multiple girls you'd still be the only girl he'd think of looking at. I know that, we all know that. But we accept that. We can't take your place, but we are entitled to have our own places in his heart too and some girlfriend privileges if we're really going to make this thing work. You can't keep his heart to yourself anymore. The other 8 of us are going to be the mothers of his children too, so we'll deserve to be treated with some love too. Besides, no matter how much he cares for us all, you're the only one amongst us in this that will wear a ring. If that's not enough of a message for his feelings for you, maybe you shouldn't be the one he puts that ring on. The former Hyuga hung her head and openly weeping. Narukun, I'm so sorry. I've been such a bitch, haven't I? Naruto released the wood jutsu on them both, turned off his Kekkei Genkai, and hugged his best friend. It made her cry more and cling to him with all her might. No, you haven't. You've just been afraid. Just promise me you won't try to become some kind of girlfriendzilla like that again. She relaxed but didn't let go. I won't, I promise. Isarabi smiled. I guess I'll take the next watch after all so you two can work out anything else in private. Hinata turned to look at her other teammate. No, you're right. My skills are better suited for this time than yours are, like you said. I'll go. You and Narukun get some rest for a bit. Naruto then kissed her forehead and she kissed his cheek. After that she separated herself from him and went outside the tree, taking a post in the foliage to avoid being seen. I need to show Narukun I can trust him to be with the others when I'm not around. I shouldn't worry, because even if I'm just one of 9, I'm number 1 of 9. She activated her Byakugan to be on the lookout, and saw Isarabi and Naruto starting to sleep only a meter apart from each other. The purple-haired girl clearly wanted to cuddle up with the disguised blonde, but he appeared to be resisting for now, going so far as to face away from her despite the potential rudeness in the act. Hinata strangely felt relieved and saddened by this. I'm glad I have nothing to worry about, but maybe next time I'll tell them it's okay. I don't want Narukun afraid of my reactions after all. Even as she told herself this, Hinata was repeatedly clenching and unclenching her fists. In another part of the Forest of Death, Team 7 of Konoha was resting for the night as well. They chose to sleep in the branches of a large tree rather than under it. Right now it was Sasuke's turn to stand watch for nocturnal enemy activity. The dark-eyed emo was doing his duty, but he had other things on his mind at the same time as well. Maybe I made a mistake entering this exam, just to test myself. He told himself woefully. I mean, I'm probably the only one here who doesn't know how good they really are. Damn the council for exaggerating my skills. What if I got myself in a situation where I could die because I didn't know my true strengths? He then felt a pang of self-loathing and self-pity, but he ignored it. It's all their fault and Kakashi's fault for making me believe that. They should have known better. Yeah, it's all their fault. If they hadn't done that, I'd still have my Sharingan. He sighed internally and scanned the area again before turning around to see what was behind him. In that case I don't know who I should be angrier at. The one who took my Sharingan from me, or the ones who set my life up with their own gain in mind. If I never lost my Jujutsu, I'd still have all the privileges and status I took for granted, but I'd still be an ignorant pawn of a greedy government that only let me think I was on top. That thought triggered a new train of thought that made his whole body jerk in shock for a moment and his eyes widen at the mere prospect of it. Wait. Does that mean I should be grateful to the jerk that took my Kekkei Genkai from me? Is it better to be privileged yet ignorant, or humbled yet aware of the truth? I don't think I like either. While Sasuke pondered his options, his Kunoichi teammate was doing the same thing in her sleep. Sakura, once adamant in her decision to pursue her goal, was now torn between two choices to make. She could either continue to pursue Sasuke, her odds greatly increased without any other rival to compete against now, or ditch him and find someone else to take an interest in, like her aunt told her to. Suzuki-kun needs help and a caring friend in these hard times for him. But when I tried to be, he wasn't interested. But I've always tried that and never thought about any other boy, because Obazan always told me he was the only one worth thinking about. I even ended my friendship with Ino so I could get Suzuki-kun like Obazan told me to do. She said we would have to fight over him someday anyway, so it would have been better to not have that kind of bond to interfere with my chance of victory. But now Ino's not interested, which makes me the best option for Suzuki-kun, but he's just being more distant. Her mind continued to ramble as she shifted from sleeping on her left side to her right. If Suzuki-kun warms up to me, then I'll get what I wanted, even though I won't have the rich high life I expected to. It's not like I can't cope with a regular budget, I've been doing that all my life with Obazan. But being with someone rich and powerful was my dream too. I just always assumed Suzuki-kun would have that too and could never possibly lose it. Now that he has, I don't know which goal is more important. I want to be with Suzuki-kun, but I also want to be wealthy and not have to work all my life just to live under a budget. Which do I choose to pursue the most? In her dreams Sakura heard two voices, neither of them inner Sakura. The first was the voice of Suzuki, who said, "I'm an Uchiha, damn it. The elite of the elite of the elite. Even the richest daimyo isn't as important as the poorest Uchiha. You really want to throw me away when the odds are almost entirely in your favor." The second was the voice of her aunt Natsumi, who said, "He's nothing but an empty wallet and a limp dick now. Men are supposed to spoil women rotten and now he can't, so what good is he to you? Ditch him and find some other clan heir to swoon over. Don't piss away your chance to bag a loaded wallet." The internal yelling was starting to give the Pinkette a headache. It was understandable, as those two and their ideals had pretty much been the only two she had ever really listened to and considered important enough to follow. Sure, she obeyed the Hokage Academy teachers when they gave orders, but to Sakura, the true power figures were and always had been Suzuki and Natsumi. But now that the two sides no longer said the same thing, she felt torn between them. Kiba meanwhile just drooled and smiled as he slept. Back with Hinata, her eyes were peeled for any threat. Her Byakugan revealed several nocturnal animals going about their business and some rival shinobi moving within her range, fortunately not towards herself. Fortunately all these things kept her focus off her sleeping teammates. While the Byakugan was indeed a jujutsu that gave its user a large range of vision, like all Kekkei Genkai there were a few facts about its use that no one without it could understand. One such fact was that the wielder couldn't truly see everything around themselves like others claimed. If the eye truly allowed someone to see everything within its large range simultaneously, as most assumed it did, the visual part of the wielder's brain would probably self-destruct from sensory overload. To prevent this, the wielder basically had a visual focal point that was free to move around to anywhere within range, with everything else being a sort of large range of peripheral vision. Sort of like something a normal-eyed person would see on the edge of their visual scope, seen but not actually looked at. So even though Hinata didn't have to move her eyes or head to see something new, she still had to move the focus of her vision around, as if she was moving her eyes or head instead, to check for danger. Fortunately she could do it quickly, for the odds of something slipping by while her focus was elsewhere was slim to none. Another good point was that there was also a permanent secondary focal point always positioned in front of themselves, so when Byakugan wielders were on the move they could look around themselves without sacrificing quality sight for what was in front of them. There's some bats, an owl, 3 Iwa genin resting, a team of Takinin running towards the center of the forest, another team of wait. Is that? Oh crap. Hinata thought to herself as she kept watch, then saw something she didn't like. Moving quickly, Hinata got out of the tree limbs and ducked inside the underground den. She was already aware of Isaribi spooning Naruto from behind and was still somewhat annoyed by it, but right now she had a bigger concern. "Naru-kun, wake up," she loudly whispered in his ear. He stirred but didn't look like he was waking up. "Wake up. We've got trouble." "What is it?" he asked in a dazed slur. "A Konoha team is heading our way. And this one has a Hyuga in it." That jolted Naruto to full awareness. He could see the problem right away. If Hinata's Byakugan saw this genin and could tell they were a Hyuga, and was this worried about it, It could only mean one thing: the Hyuga saw her too and could see a foreign ninja had their bloodline. Since Isaribi was still asleep, Naruto just hoisted her onto his back. "Let's go then." Hinata nodded and both left their hideout, immediately heading for the branches to jump through. Hinata reactivated her Dojutsu. "He's still on our tail. He definitely sees me and isn't looking happy. He's accompanied by a girl with some scrolls in her pockets and a guy in a green jumpsuit in a rather small chakra system. How do we lose him?" Naruto asked. "What about if you use your unbloodline to make me no longer have the Byakugan for a time? Long enough to throw them off," Hinata suggested. "No good. Konoha's already on a witch hunt for anyone with the unbloodline. If they see that, it's like painting a big bullseye on our team," Naruto countered. "Damn, you're right. How about gravity control? Good enough for me." "Hang on," Naruto told her, only to get her to clamp onto him on his front side. "I didn't mean literally, but I won't complain." Naruto then activated his gravity control Kekkai Genkai, briefly worried what that showed the pursuing Hyuga, and took to the air with his teammates in tow. The Hyuga chasing them stopped in his tracks, and his teammates soon did too, to ask what was wrong. His response: "I must be more tired than I thought. I could have sworn I just saw them fly away like birds." Check the description for the links to the author.